My name is Jessica Moore, and I've always been the kind of person who observes before speaking. Not shy, just strategic. I work in corporate compliance at a mid-sized finance firm in Portland, Oregon. 34 years old, single, no kids, and, until a few months ago, I thought I had finally found some semblance of balance. Our office is pristine, almost sterile, glass walls, brushed steel, coffee machines that cost more than some people's cars. But it's the silence that always gets me. It's too quiet, like the building itself is holding its breath. It all began on a Wednesday. Wednesdays are always the slowest, so I usually spend that time organizing files or combing through reports. That morning, I arrived a bit earlier than usual. The receptionist, Haley, hadn't even clocked in yet. I remember feeling strange the second I walked through the glass door. The air felt different, thicker, like I'd walked into a room that had just hosted an argument. I shook it off. I'm not someone who believes in vibes and energy fields. At least, I wasn't. As I made my way to my office, I noticed a faint flicker of movement near the break room, a shadow ducking out of view. I thought maybe it was Marcus, our VP of operations. He often came in early and moved like a ghost. But when I stepped into the break room, no one was there. The light was off. A half-full coffee cup sat abandoned on the counter, still steaming. Odd. I went to my office and got to work, brushing off the weirdness. Around 9 a.m., the team began trickling in. Smiles, fake laughter, the usual pleasantries. But something felt off. Marcus walked past my office without his usual nod. He seemed preoccupied, face pale, eyes darting nervously. I made a mental note, but didn't dwell on it. An hour later, I noticed Heather, my supervisor, lingering by the copy machine. She was talking to Tyler from legal. They were whispering, too low for me to hear, but I caught one word as I stepped out into the hall. Her. Their heads snapped toward me, lips tightening. Tyler offered a tight smile. "Morning, Jess," he said, and then quickly walked away. Heather just gave me that condescending half-smile she reserved for interns and enemies. "Working early, huh?" I nodded. "Just catching up." I returned to my office with a dull ache forming behind my eyes. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking it. Paranoia in the workplace is like a virus. Once you catch it, it eats at everything. But I've never had reason to feel like this before. Until now. Around noon, I decided to grab lunch. As I walked through the hallway, I passed by Marcus's office. His door was cracked open just enough for me to see part of his desk. Papers were scattered everywhere, and he was on a call. His voice was low but urgent. "I don't care what she knows," he hissed. "Just keep it quiet until we—" The second I stepped closer, the door slammed shut. My heart skipped. That wasn't normal. I stood there for a moment, frozen. Then I turned and walked away. My appetite evaporated. Back in my office, I sat at my desk and tried to work, but my focus was shot. What was Marcus trying to keep quiet? Was it about me? Why did Heather and Tyler look so guilty? I told myself not to spiral. I was probably just tired. Maybe Marcus was talking about someone else. Maybe her wasn't me. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on, something big, and I was somehow at the center of it. As I packed up to leave for the day, I caught Haley staring at me from the reception desk. Her expression was unreadable, almost pitying. When I waved, she flinched like she hadn't expected me to notice her. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, haunted by half-heard whispers and nervous glances. My phone buzzed once. A text from an unknown number. "You weren't supposed to hear that." I sat upright, heart hammering in my chest. I stared at the message, fingers trembling. I didn't reply. Didn't dare. I didn't sleep that night. That message haunted me. "You weren't supposed to hear that." I kept staring at my phone screen, hoping it would light up again, give me more clues. But nothing else came. I ran the number through a reverse lookup site. No name, just a local area code. By 6 a.m., I was already dressed, pacing my kitchen with a cup of coffee I'd barely touched. Every creak in the apartment made me jump. I kept checking the windows. Paranoia was setting in fast. I got to work earlier than ever. Haley wasn't even there yet again. The building was dimly lit, the sun still stretching its fingers over the horizon. My heels echoed louder than usual across the marble floor. I felt like a trespasser in my own workplace. I took the back stairs up to the third floor instead of the elevator. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to be alone in a steel box with my thoughts. As I approached my office, I heard faint voices, two people talking in Marcus's office. I paused, then crept a little closer, standing just beyond the line of sight. "She's catching on," Heather said. Her voice was tight. Marcus sighed. "I know. That's why we have to move fast." I stopped breathing. Heather hissed, "Do you think she knows about the offshore files?" Marcus didn't answer right away. Then I heard him mutter, "Not yet. But she's not stupid. If she figures it out." Heather cut in, "We can't afford a leak, Marcus." My stomach turned. A cold rush spread from my chest to my fingertips. Offshore files? A leak? What the hell were they hiding? I quickly ducked into the copy room and waited until I heard their conversation end and their doors close. My hands were shaking. Every nerve in my body was buzzing. When I finally entered my office, I shut the door gently, locked it, and sat at my desk in stunned silence. I couldn't focus. My mind was replaying everything. Marcus's hushed phone call, the weird looks, the message. And now this. There was something going on. And I was definitely involved. At lunchtime, I stepped out of the building and walked a few blocks to clear my head. The city looked normal. Buses growling past, people rushing to lunch, the smell of falafel from a food cart wafting in the air. But I felt detached, like I was walking through a simulation. My eyes kept darting around. Was someone following me? Watching me? That's when I noticed Tyler sitting alone in a cafe across the street. He was on his laptop, earbuds in, but when our eyes met, he quickly looked away. A coincidence? I stood frozen, debating whether to confront him. But my gut told me not yet. Instead, I pulled out my phone and opened the HR portal. I searched for my employee file. Nothing strange stood out. But then I noticed something unusual in the system logs. Someone had accessed my file at 2:13 a.m. last night. Who in the world was looking at my information in the middle of the night? My head spun. Back at the office, I tried to act normal. I smiled at Haley, who seemed extra tense today. Her fingers trembled slightly as she handed me my mail.
"Thanks," I said.
She nodded, then leaned in slightly and whispered, "Be careful who you trust." Before I could ask anything, she turned and walked away quickly, disappearing into the restroom. Be careful who you trust? Was she trying to warn me? I went to the restroom after her, but she was gone. Just an empty room and the sound of a leaking faucet. Something was happening beneath the surface. Something dark. And I was in the center of it. I started gathering my own evidence. I began screenshotting system logs, taking photos of strange documents I came across, carefully, discreetly. I copied files to a secure encrypted drive I carried in my purse. Every conversation I overheard felt layered with hidden meaning. Every glance now felt calculated. By late afternoon, I noticed Marcus walking quickly toward the elevators with a file folder clutched to his chest. He glanced at me briefly, then looked away like he didn't recognize me. That night, as I got into my car, I noticed a small slip of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. I looked around. No one nearby. I unfolded it. Scrawled in messy handwriting were just 3 words. "You're not safe." I gripped the paper with trembling fingers. My breath caught somewhere between my ribs and throat. "You're not safe." It didn't feel like a warning anymore. It felt like a threat. I scanned the parking garage, every corner, every shadow. A man in a hoodie walked past without looking at me. A janitor swept a pile of leaves near the stairwell. Normal. Too normal. I got in my car, locked the doors, and sat still. My hands were slick with sweat. I didn't start the engine right away. I just sat there staring at that note, playing back everything I'd seen and heard over the last 48 hours. Marcus. Heather. Haley's warning. Tyler watching me. The 2:13 a.m. file access. And now this. The only person I could even think of talking to was Jared, an old college friend who now worked in cybersecurity for a private firm in DC. We hadn't spoken in a year, but I called him anyway. He picked up on the third ring.
Danny?
Damn, it's been a while. I need a favor, I said, cutting straight to it. I think someone's watching me at work. Actually, something shady is happening, and I think I'm involved without even knowing it. There was a pause. Then, tell me everything. Don't leave anything out. I laid it all out, the overheard conversations, the secret files, the late-night data access, the message. Everything. Jared whistled low. You need to be careful. This doesn't sound like office gossip. It sounds federal. Federal? I asked, heartbeat thudding.
Yeah.
Offshore files? Late-night logins? Sounds like some kind of financial laundering or wire fraud. If you're linked to it, even accidentally, they might want to make sure you stay quiet. I swallowed. So what do?
He paused again.
I'll send you a secure link. Upload whatever files you have to a drive I'll give you access to. And, Danny. Yeah, don't talk to anyone else. Not even people you think you trust. Not until I've seen those files. I spent the next 3 hours in my apartment, curtains drawn, every lamp on. I uploaded screenshots, photos, copies of emails, and a blurry image of the folder Marcus had been holding. I didn't sleep that night either. And then came Friday morning. I walked into the office feeling like I was carrying a lit stick of dynamite in my purse. Haley wasn't at her desk. Tyler wasn't either. In fact, the whole floor was quiet. Too quiet. I reached my office door and stopped cold. It was slightly open. That door was always locked unless I unlocked it. I pushed it open. Everything looked normal until I saw the USB drive on my desk. My USB drive. The one I kept hidden in my purse. I rushed to it, nearly knocking over a lamp. Someone had gone through my bag. They'd taken the drive and then brought it back? I plugged it in with trembling hands. There was a new folder on it titled, Know This. Inside was one file. A video. No metadata. No timestamp. No name. I clicked it. The video opened to grainy footage of a conference room. Marcus sat at the head of the table. Heather beside him. Tyler across. She's getting close, Marcus was saying. Danny's not just nosy, she's smart. She's already copied some of the files. Heather rubbed her temples. If she goes public, it could expose everything. The Cayman accounts. The slush fund for the senator. Tyler added, what if we leak something to discredit her? Make her look unstable. Too risky, Marcus said. She's too clean. We may need to take other measures. The room went quiet, and then Heather said something that froze my blood. If we have to silence her, do it before Monday. The video ended. I stared at the screen, unable to blink, unable to breathe. It wasn't just corruption. It wasn't just betrayal. They were planning to silence me. Before Monday, I backed away from the desk like it had turned to fire. I grabbed my phone, called Jared. It's worse than I thought, I said, my voice barely audible. They're planning something. They mentioned a senator. Offshore money. And me. They know I know. Get out of there, Jared said instantly.
Now.
Go somewhere public. Stay visible. I'll call the police. No, Jared snapped. If they've got political connections, you don't know who's involved. Go to the press. But only with protection. I'll arrange a contact. Just then, I heard footsteps in the hallway. I peeked through the blinds. Tyler was walking toward my door. He stopped and stared right at it. And then he knocked. 3 sharp raps. Danny? You in there? I didn't answer. My heart thundered in my chest. Another knock. I think we need to talk. I backed away from the door, reached for the chair, quietly slipped off my heels. And then I slipped out the emergency exit that connected through the mailroom. I didn't stop running until I hit the subway. I didn't go home. I didn't go to a friend's. I didn't even stop for coffee or food. I ended up in a dingy motel on the outskirts of town. Cash only. No ID required. I sat in that room with my back against the wall, phone in my hand, and the curtains drawn tight. Every creak outside, every footstep, every passing engine made me flinch. Jared called again around 7 p.m.
His voice was sharper this time.
"You're not going to believe this," he said. "What now?" "The files you uploaded, they don't just implicate Marcus and Heather. There are emails with timestamps matching payments to someone in the senator's inner circle. It's bigger than we thought." I was silent, trying to process. Jared continued, "The press is interested, but they want an in-person meeting. I've arranged for you to meet a journalist, Sarah Blake. She works with whistleblowers, knows how to keep them safe. She's flying in tomorrow morning." "Okay." My voice cracked. "But I can't just wait. They said Monday. That's 2 days from now. What if they move faster?" Jared hesitated. "Then maybe it's time you make a move too."
I didn't sleep that night.
Again, I stayed up drafting a backup email with the video, naming every person involved. I scheduled it to send automatically to Jared, Sarah, and a few anonymous tip lines if I didn't cancel by noon the next day. But by morning, something inside me had shifted. I was done running. I was going to face them. Sunday, 8:13 a.m. I walked into the office building wearing sunglasses and a hood, adrenaline buzzing through my veins. The security guard didn't question me. I moved straight up to the 12th floor. The office was empty, except for one person, Marcus. He was at the window, sipping coffee like it was just another peaceful morning. When he turned and saw me, his expression didn't change much. Just a slow, careful blink. "Danielle," he said softly, "I was wondering when you'd show up." I stepped into the room and shut the door behind me. I saw the video. He didn't even pretend to be confused. I figured. My fists clenched.
Why?
Why bring me into this? Why pretend to mentor me if all I was to you was a liability? Marcus walked to the desk and placed his cup down gently. "Because, Danny, you weren't supposed to notice. You were supposed to do your job and keep your head down. But you're curious. That's dangerous in our world." "Our world?" I snapped. "You mean your criminal empire? The money laundering? The dirty senator you're protecting?"
He smirked.
"You don't know half of it." That's when Heather walked in. She froze when she saw me, then closed the door behind her calmly.
"Well,
this is awkward." "You're monsters," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "You are going to frame me, gaslight me, or worse." I heard it all. Heather rolled her eyes. "You weren't supposed to be in that day, Danny. We had a plan, but you complicated things." My blood was boiling. "You would have let me take the fall for all of it." Marcus leaned in slightly. "We considered it. But then we thought, maybe you'd be useful. That brain of yours. That drive. Shame you turned it against us." I took a step forward. "It's over. The files are out. The video is backed up in 6 places. If anything happens to me, everything goes public." Heather's expression darkened. "You think we didn't plan for that?" Before I could respond, the door opened again. Tyler. He looked at me, then Marcus, then back at me. He held something in his hand. A phone. "No more games," he said. "I'm done being part of this." Heather's eyes went wide. "What are you doing?" Tyler stepped into the room and then tossed the phone on the table. "She's not lying. I made a copy of the video too. Sent it to a contact. It's over." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You idiot. You were going to pin this on her," Tyler snapped. "But you also told me last night that if things got worse, you'd pin it on me." "I heard you." Heather moved toward him, slow and calculated. "Think about what you're doing, Tyler." "I did," he said, standing his ground. "And I'd rather go down for whistleblowing than take the fall for people who'd throw me under the bus the second it gets hard." I looked at him, shocked. "Why now?" He met my eyes. "Because you're not the only one who woke up too late." That's when Marcus lunged for the phone. Tyler stepped in his way, and suddenly they were grappling. Heather grabbed for the laptop. I lunged too, slamming it shut before she could yank it out. There was yelling, crashing, then security burst into the room. I didn't know who had called them. Maybe the front desk heard the noise. Maybe Tyler had tipped them off. But in seconds, Marcus and Heather were being restrained. You don't know who you're messing with. Marcus screamed as they dragged him away. Heather spat at me. You think this ends with us? You have no idea what's coming. And then, silence. Just me and Tyler, standing in the wreckage. He looked around, dazed.
Well,
That escalated. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I whispered, "It's not over." He nodded. But at least now we're not pretending anymore. The next 48 hours blurred into one endless media storm. News vans lined up outside the federal courthouse. Headlines exploded across every major outlet. Whistleblower exposes corruption ring tied to Senator Aldridge. Insiders speak out. Whistleblower video leaked. Tech firm executives arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud case. Marcus and Heather were the faces of the scandal, but they weren't the only ones named. The video had done its job, but it was just the beginning. Senator Aldridge publicly denied everything, of course. He called it a deep fake, a conspiracy, and political theater. But when 3 more insiders stepped forward, 2 accountants and 1 former aide, his world started to crack. I watched it all unfold from a safe house across state lines, set up by Sarah Blake, the journalist Jared had introduced me to. She was everything I didn't know I needed. Sharp, calm, no nonsense. She handled the media while I stayed quiet, anonymous for now. Tyler had been offered immunity in exchange for testimony. He took it. I watched him on the screen one morning as he walked into court beside his lawyer. His face looked older, heavier. When he glanced toward the cameras, I swore for a second, just a flicker, he was looking for me. I sat in that room thinking it was over, thinking I'd won. But then came a knock on the door. Sarah opened it. It was Jared. He looked pale,
sweating.
"You need to see this," he said, pulling out his phone. The video on his screen played quietly. Security footage, grainy but clear. It was me, from a week ago, entering Marcus's office. Then another clip. Me again, walking into a data room I'd never even been in. The timestamp was fake. The footage doctored. I stared, confused. What is this? Jared's voice was hoarse. They're spinning a counter-narrative. Someone is leaking footage to make it look like you orchestrated everything. They're claiming you set them up. My stomach dropped.
What?
But why? The files. The audio. The witnesses. He cut me off. They're framing you as a rogue employee. They're trying to bury you under a mountain of evidence to protect bigger names. Senator Aldridge hasn't fallen yet. He's pushing back. Hard. I stood frozen. They're still coming. Jared nodded. You've embarrassed powerful people. They won't let you go that easily. Sarah stepped in. We anticipated this. I've already sent the originals to 6 independent experts. Once they verify the footage, we go public with the manipulation campaign. But you can't disappear now, Danielle. If you vanish, they win. I swallowed hard. What are you saying? You need to speak, Sarah said softly. On record. Face the cameras. Make them see you're real. Make them hear your voice. I wanted to scream. I wanted to crawl under the floor and disappear. But I remembered Heather's face. Marcus's smug smirk. And I remembered Tyler's voice when he said, "You're not the only one who woke up too late." I nodded.
Fine.
I'll do it. The day of the interview, I stood in a small studio across from Sarah. The lights were hot. The cameras red. My hands trembled. But when the first question came, "Why did you come forward?" something in me settled. I told the truth. Not just the facts. The feelings. The betrayal. The fear. The rage. The loneliness. The choice. And when I finished, the silence was electric. Sarah leaned in. "You're very brave, Danielle." I smiled. Barely. "I'm just done being afraid." The public rallied.
People saw through the smear campaign.
Analysts picked apart the doctored videos. AI experts confirmed the manipulation. Senator Aldridge's approval rating tanked. By the end of the month, federal prosecutors had opened a formal investigation into his campaign finances. It wasn't justice yet, but it was something. And then came the letter. Plain envelope. No return address. Just my name on the front. Inside, a single sheet of paper.
Typed.
No signature. You think this is over. It's not. You lit a fire, and now it's spreading. There are people watching you now, people who don't forget. Stay alert, and don't get too comfortable. We're still out here. I stared at the letter for what felt like hours. Tyler called me that night. You okay? I didn't answer right away. Then, I don't know. There was a long pause. I got one too, he said finally. That was the real twist. It wasn't just about Marcus and Heather. It wasn't even about Aldridge. It was deeper.
Wider.
More dangerous. We had pulled back the first layer. And underneath was something far darker. I ended the call and walked to the window. The city pulsed below, alive, chaotic, uncertain. I wasn't safe. But I wasn't silent either. And sometimes that's all you can be. They thought I'd stay quiet. That I'd tuck my tail between my legs. That I'd take the betrayal, the manipulation, the gaslighting, and vanish. But silence was never safety. Silence was surrender. And I had surrendered long enough. In the weeks that followed my interview, strangers started reaching out, people who had worked under Marcus, people who had once trusted Heather, even a few whistleblowers who never got the chance to speak. They thanked me. They warned me. And some offered help. One name came up again and again, Project Echo.
I didn't know what it was at first.
Jared thought it might be a shell organization used to funnel illicit campaign funds. Sarah dug deeper and found references to it buried inside legislative budgeting memos. Nothing definitive, but always connected to defense contractors, surveillance initiatives, and undisclosed data acquisition programs. Every trail led to a dead end. Until I got another envelope. This time, there was no letter. Just a flash drive. When Jared decrypted the files, we found blueprints, real ones. A sprawling list of names, coded communication logs, and audio recordings. It was worse than anything I had exposed before. It implicated not just politicians, but judges, corporate lobbyists, even members of law enforcement. And in the middle of it was me. My name was listed under Liability Protocol Tier 2. Targeted for surveillance.
Tracked.
Flagged for neutralization, in case of escalation. I had thought this was about Marcus. Or Heather. Or even Aldridge. But now I knew. I'd scratched the surface of something designed to stay hidden forever. I tried to sleep that night, but the silence was too loud. Too full of what I now knew. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at my hands. They trembled, but not from fear. From clarity. Because for the first time I understood. This wasn't a story of revenge. It was a war for truth. And truth has casualties. The following day, I recorded another message. This time it wasn't for the media. It was for anyone out there who'd been silenced. I looked straight into the lens and said, they thought I'd stay quiet. They counted on my fear. But fear is a mirror, and I've smashed mine. If you're watching this and you've been carrying something, a secret, a betrayal, a truth they told you to bury, I want you to know something. You don't owe them your silence. You never did. I ended the recording. Uploaded it to 3 secure servers. Jared set it to release in timed waves if anything happened to me. Because I knew now, I wasn't just telling my story anymore. I was starting something. Sarah came by later that night. We sat by the window, city lights blinking like coded signals from some distant world. Do you regret it? She asked. I thought about it. About the betrayal. The risk. The fear. I shook my head.
No.
I regret waiting so long to speak. She smiled. You're going to be a problem for a lot of people. I raised my glass. Good. But even as we laughed, even as I let myself feel something close to peace, my phone buzzed again. A message from an encrypted number. It goes deeper than you know. If you're ready for more, come to DC. Coordinates will follow. Burn this message. I stared at it. My pulse slowed. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. I took a breath, looked out at the skyline, and whispered to myself, you thought I'd stay quiet. So, I gave you a reality check. Now, let me show you what happens when I don't stop.